round two of the music to bring us in.
So sorry.
There we go.
We just love that music so much.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Love in the Time of Hydra, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 10th anniversary podcast. On this day, 10 years ago, Tuesday, October 1st, a lot was happening in the world. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2 was the biggest movie at the domestic box office that day. Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus was still the #1 song, and the United States federal government shut down. But the most important thing that happened on that day 10 years ago was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s second episode, 084, aired on ABC at 8, 7 Central. Hello, I'm Jamie Jarek, and I'm here with my co-host boyfriend and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. novice, Tony Paletto. Hi, Tony.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for those who are watching and listening. It's exciting to be back.
Yes, happy to be here. And today we have our very first guest, my best friend, the host of the Give Me That D podcast, Jake Barrington.
Flying.
Hello.
Hey.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so
thank
much
you for
being
coming.
here.
It's a dream.
I'm just so excited. Just celebrating the 10th anniversary of the time that the government shut down for 17 days.
I know.
We were almost, yeah. Holy crap.
History repeats itself.
Yeah, I didn't know it lined up like that. Holy moly.
Wild. And so, we like to talk about what we were all doing 10 years ago today. And on October 1st, 2013, Jake, you and I were only 4 days away from opening a production of Rocky Horror, which means that we're not only celebrating 10 years of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we're celebrating 10 years of our best friendship.
It's really wild. I cannot believe it's been a decade. When I
know.
saw that on the rundown, I was like, what was happening 10 years ago? I was like, oh my God, that was when we were rehearsing Rocky.
This week. For those theater fans like really excited and want to know all of our history, Jake was Frankenfurter and I was Magenta.
And we killed it. We crushed it.
Yes.
We were
Jake,
so
is
good.
that what you were planning on talking about when I was going to ask about 10 years from now?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like that was what a time. We were really just getting to know each other and spending so much time together in rehearsals. And then after that, the run of the show. And that was a big part of my life on October 1st, 2013. It was kind of in the throes of doing comedy and doing Rocky Horror, which was so fun.
But you were not watching the second episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I was not, sadly.
Okay,
I had not found my way here. I was probably, I think maybe Scream Queens was still on the air at that point. So I was probably watching that, another great show.
I do.
But
R.I.P. to one of the greats. Tony, do you remember what you were doing on this day 10 years ago?
Well, you're going to ask me this every week, I've learned. And my only hope is referring to my Facebook photos to determine, as best I can, what the heck I was doing. But it's really just inadequate. So I'm just going to start lying. I was working at a wolf preserve in Western Germany, helping feed all of the wolves that were sort of living in our region. And it was a semi-dangerous job, but it's not funny. Wolf preservation is a very serious matter, especially in Germany. So that was what I was doing. I was volunteering, but ate some great schnitzel and made a lot of lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Wow,
any strong bonds with the wolves themselves?
Great question.
Yes. Domino and Macaroon, the two who I was closest with, are now full grown and have been re-released into the larger population. But I keep in touch with them. Yeah, thank you for asking. No, they're doing very well. Thank you.
Wow, I think we have a new segment called Tony Lies.
Call it what you will. That's what I was up to. I don't know about you guys were doing a play or something. I don't know.
Wow. Well, before we dive into this episode and talk about real things that happened 10 years ago today, I do want to thank everybody who tuned in live last week and everybody who is joining us this week. I figured last week that some fandom members would be joining us in our first episode because this fandom is a small but active fan base and they love to come in and do stuff, and that's why I love you all. But we were so surprised by how many of you dropped out during the Tony Leaves the Room segment, which means we've got a lot of AOS first timers here as of day one, and that makes me so happy. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching live, and those who can't join live, thank you for listening on all of the various podcast platforms. And a friendly reminder, tag those spoilers. Yes. Yeah, tag those spoilers in the chat.
Spoilers.
All you have to do.
I got people I got people here watching this with me for the first time. Let's all be nice and protect Tony and protect me and protect everybody.
Yeah, all you got to do is write spoiler in the comments. All right, so we got all that out of the way. I want to talk before we get into the episode. Jake, I want to talk about a little bit of your history with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because
Sure.
you have not watched the show. However, and I feel like we're going to make some of the audience members hate you a little bit because even though you haven't watched the show, you have met the entire cast.
I have. That I have.
Yes.
And I have you to thank for that. You know,
Yes.
the perks of being your best friend allowed me to go to the 100th episode panel with you. I got to meet everyone, which was so cool.
Which you were excited about Ming because you love Mulan.
Yes.
So like that was exciting for you.
Huge to meet me, and she was so nice and so gracious, and she had like all I remember is she was like so kind about taking a picture with me, and she had like some really weird keychain connected to her phone that was really big, and I remember thinking like where do you put that? You know, like, that's not going in a pocket.
So this means you have now seen the first 2 episodes for this podcast and the 100th episode. Those are the only episodes you've seen.
Yes. So I have some knowledge of what's coming much later. But yeah, that was a really cool experience. And I sat next to, at one point, I don't know if they're still together, but Clark Gregg's at the time wife.
They're not actually. They're not. Yeah.
I didn't think so. But there was a moment where I was trying to get good video for you. Yeah, yes. I was like, I want to record this for Jamie. And I was like, I need an open seat, and just sat next to her, which was very funny. And then I didn't know who she was until after.
She's lovely, and they're on really good terms. So we love them, and they have a really lovely daughter. And fun thing, Tony watched Dirty Dancing for the first time last year, and he loved it.
Oh, well, there you go.
Man, I had never seen. I know we can't devote too much time to this, but my God, Dirty Dancing was one of these movies that like has always been around. I kind of this holding her up in business and all that, and I knew it was really good. I thought I would be like it. I was like, well, it's a beloved movie. I'm at least going to find something to like about it. I loved that movie so much. I was so invested. I was speaking out loud about how I felt people were being treated in that movie. I was so proud of characters. It filled me up like top to bottom as if it had come out that day. It was
the
so
classic. It's the classic.
It's
for a reason.
For a reason. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Man,
well, glad we got that shout out. Yeah. I do also want to talk about, before we get into this episode, one last thing. And that is the original concept for this podcast was going to be Jake was going to be my co-host. And as I've talked about last week, my only complaint about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is that it's not queer. It's just not. Sure. So the idea was I wanted like to have like 2 queer hosts and just make it as queer as possible. And if I was listening to this reveal as an audience member and found out that like a queer host got replaced by a straight host, I'd be so pissed off. But like it's just how my life turned out. Like I just ended up with Tony and he wanted to watch it. But you ended up doing your podcast, and that's why we never did this. And it all worked out for everybody. But so real quick, just tell us about your podcast.
Oh yes, I do a podcast called "Gimme That D," which is a Disney Channel original movie breakdown podcast. And me and my co-host Caitlin Wolcott are going through all of the old Disney Channel movies from the early '90s and late '90s, early 2000s. And we have such a blast. Jamie's been on a couple times to talk about Tower of Terror and the Mary-Kate and Ashley movie, Switching Goals. So if you want a way in, go back and listen to those. But we have a ton of fun over there. And yes, I wish I could do 2 podcasts concurrently, but I don't. I think I would combust. But, I'm so happy that this podcast is here, though.
Me too. Yeah. And I'm glad that you got to be our first guest. That's special, and it's a full circle kind of a thing. And so this was your first. We're going to be talking more about the second episode, but just real quick, what did you think of the pilot since you hadn't seen it?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with the pilot. Because I had a little bit of knowledge of what was going on, I was excited to get into it. I was excited to see Maria Hill. I love Colby, and I had a lot of fun. Ming is just I could watch her do anything, and so I had fun with the setup. And I have more to say about the first, but I feel like we have to start talking about the second before I can get
That's
back
fair.
to,
Okay, yeah. We can
That's a
circle back
gentleman
later,
with
too.
podcast experience right there. He's
Yeah.
let's move it right along.
He knows
please.
what he's doing. And that's a great segue into a quick synopsis on 084. The episode was written by the team of executive producers, which are showrunners Jed Whedon and Marissa Tancherone, aka Jedmo, along with EP Jeffrey Bell. Fun fact, Bell is only credited for writing 12 episodes, and one of them is the series finale. And I, can't comment on that now, but I'll never pass up the opportunity to mention that Bell also wrote and directed the series finale of Angel, my favorite series finale of all time. So, just a fun little fact. The episode was directed by David Straighten, who would go on to also direct the season 1 finale. He's directed a lot of TV, including 3 episodes of Angel, but he's done some Dollhouse, which is another Whedon family show, Inhumans, Womp, The Gifted, Stargirl, and some other stuff as well. So the cast, we've got him back. We've got Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, Chloe Bennett as Skye, Ming-Na Wen as Melinda May, Brett Dalton as Grant Ward, Ian DeCasticker as Leo Fitz, and Gemma Simmons as Elizabeth Henstridge. We've got a guest star, Leonor Varela as Camila Reyes, and super duper unexpected post-credits scene shocker in episode 2, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, which we will obviously spend a lot of time on. And in this episode, the team travels to Peru to unearth an 084, which we learn is an object of unknown origin. Things go awry, and Coulson's newly assembled team must learn to work together in order to survive. So, Tony, what are your initial thoughts on episode 2?
I dug episode 2. I like that we're, in the bus going places. Because in the first episode, you assured me that the bus actually did lift off and land somewhere, although we didn't see it. This episode started with the bus in flight, and I'm like, all right, we're jamming, we're going places. I love this international globe-trotting potential that this show has, which is something I didn't really think about. We're going to get in the bus and we're going to go all over the world and do S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, and that's cool. And I also like that I'm sort of just trying to get a taste for what this formula is. If this show is largely going to be, I know as it progresses, we're going to get long form storylines that are going to stretch across, and we already have those already. But I like the sort of procedural sci-fi mystery aspect of this show. That's something that I really like, and I would love to see more of that. Jamie, you and I have watched a couple of these Quatermass movies, and that are from the 50s and 60s and 70s. And Quatermass is a British scientist, and sometimes he's a rocket scientist, and sometimes he's a naturalist or whatever. But there's always some sort of strange science fiction mystery that he's at the head of and trying to unravel. And it's a kind of thing that I really like a lot. I liked the gist of the second episode quite a bit.
Cool, that's a cool comparison. Jake, what were your initial thoughts or overall thoughts of episode 2?
I felt like coming in after just watching the first episode for the first time, I felt like episode 2 allowed me to understand what the show really was. I really liked the first episode, and I went back and looked. I was like, oh, did these air together? Because I felt like the second episode still felt like a pilot to me, in that I was like, okay, now I finally understand the dynamics between these characters. Now I'm finally understanding what this show is about and what we're going to be doing. And while I understand why the setup in the first episode is the way it is, and you need to understand where these characters come from, I just had a lot better understanding of oh, okay, now I get what this show is, and felt, I really liked it. And I like the dynamics between all of the characters. And that's kind of speaking to how I felt about the first episode, where I was like, I like it, but everybody felt just kind of all over the place. I was like, I don't really know what they have to do with each other yet. And now I'm like, okay, I got it.
Okay. Yeah. That's exactly why I love this episode, because it's when they become a team. And I think that's really cool that you already see them. It's such a good arc for this team. They're a mess, and then by the end they're working together, and I just think that's really beautiful. By the end of this episode, I because I've seen it so many times, and because I know what happens with these characters, I get emotional. I tear up when they're all drinking beer together every time I watch it, because it's just a special beginning. And that's why I'm an advocate for rewatching things, because when you go back, things will hit you harder once you know what's coming. So, but let's talk about some of the specifics of the episode. First of all, the episode is called 084. We learn what it means, and we learn that the last thing that wasn't 084 was Thor's hammer. There are a lot of MCU references in this one. Of course, Fitzsimmons determines that the object is Hydra made, powered by this Tesseract. So, Tony, what are your thoughts on these greater MCU mentions? We hear Hydra name drop. That's, in the title of our podcast. Captain America's name dropped. Are you surprised at all these mentions that are still happening in episode 2?
No, it didn't surprise me, but I really like it. I saw it and I thought like that looks like some Hydra tech from the 40s. Like it may not have been that complete of a thought, but I was like, this looks like something that would have been in Captain America, the First Avenger. And especially that sort of light blue glowy, Tesseract thing. I was like,
classic.
Classic. It's where it all began. So I thought that was cool. I liked we still don't know a hell of a lot about it, except that it's remarkably powerful. We saw it behave certain ways. We saw them use it. And I guess now it's going to a black site storage facility, I guess was where we ended up with that piece of machine. No, I'm glad. I hope that it continues to fold in the films. I really do.
Jake, so Jake, you're, just to let the audience know, you're a Marvel fan. You've seen all the movies. You're not as intense as I am. You don't rewatch them over and over and over again. But you are
some of them.
Yeah. True. Yes. Yeah. Feel free to shout out your favorites. But so you're certainly no novice when it comes to this franchise. So, But being new to this show, how did you feel about all these? Does it excite you? Like, oh, I know what that thing is that they're talking about.
Yeah, totally. I loved it. It was interesting to see because this was so long ago, and now we have so many shows that are like explicitly a part of the MCU and are kind of essential for you to understand what's going on. If you're not watching the shows, like you're missing out on so much. So it's interesting to see them. It almost felt like a test ground for them to see like what they would be capable of doing in the future.
Good call.
Yeah, I'll be interested if I continue watching, which, we'll see.
Yeah, because we want you back on the show.
Yes, I know. Yeah. I gotta come back. I'm interested to see how long that lasts and like what other references come up.
Cool. And so this episode starts with a teaser kind of a thing where you see the bus and then Coulson says like all good here, blue skies, and then the thing blows open. Somebody gets sucked out of the plane, and so which I love. It's like good intrigue. It's the first time, we're seeing something where then we backtrack 19 hours. And I really like that device. Tony, what was going through your mind when we opened with this really intense start?
I like openers like that too. Because now I'm, puts the audience in a cool position of waiting until the setting and the circumstances are right for us to be caught up with that moment we saw. And it helps you, develop suspicions. I liked that we had these soldiers, these Peruvian soldiers on the ship, and I'm thinking in my head, I wonder if we can trust these guys. I know there's things about to get a hole blown in it, but at the same time, I also know that it's just a volatile device that was taken in a delicate way by a jackoff named Ward, who just stripped it off a wall and chucked it onto an airplane as though that's, proper procedure. That's one of the few things I'm going to be mentioning as to why I think Ward should be fired from this team. But yeah, no, it's a good opener for sure.
Jake, did you feel similarly?
Yeah, it was really. I wrote in my notes. I was like, "Oh, this is such a fun way to open an episode." I'm immediately intrigued. Immediately need to know both how the hole in the plane happened, and at the beginning, it was I didn't really get any identifying features of the person who flew out. So I was like, "Who is it?"
Right? I actually didn't even think
one
about
of us.
That.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was exciting.
And, we got to talk about how Tahiti has come up again. And Coulson says it's a magical place. And Sky's like, yeah, you said that before. Jake, we talked about this last week. In the pilot, we know something's going on. Like Maria Hill and the doctor were like, he can never know. So you don't know, right? You don't know.
I don't know.
Him. Yeah. Do you have? Yeah.
I don't think he's ever been to Tahiti. That's what I think. I'm thinking, if he was dead and he thinks he was in Tahiti, I'm thinking, is it clone? Is it, like what happened to him that he can't know about? But I mean, it feels like Tahiti was not a real experience.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
That's how
Bookmarking that.
I read it. That's how I read
Love
it.
it.
But I don't
Love
know. I
it.
don't know.
Okay. Jake's like,
Well,
I
I've
don't
since
know.
I've developed an opinion now because I same as you, Jake. First episode, I was like, oh, he's a robot or he's a clone or it's something. And I kind of remember all of this speculation happening when the show was going on because I remember seeing trailers for it and they're like, Coulson's alive. How? And so now, I mean, he keeps saying magical. So now I'm under the impression that it's magic. I'm under the impression that he was somehow regenerated or they used magic. I don't think we're going to get into Camartage like Stephen Strange territory because it's too soon into the chronology of these stories. But I'm like, oh, magic is it's a very specific word, and he keeps saying it. Was there magic involved in his reconjuring? And but no, I agree with you, Jake. That dude's never been to Tahiti.
Yeah, clear as day. The writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
I think that's actually
But I
the
love
name
it.
of a season 2 episode. I could be wrong, but
Is
I
it the
think
one
it
where
is.
he finds out he never went to Tahiti?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Maria, bookmark this conversation for season 2. So okay, so we've got all these characters, and Skye is now an official consultant, which is the same title that's given to Tony Stark. We know this from the movies. We know this from the consultant, the Marvel one shot. So Tony, I have to ask how you're feeling about Skye at this point.
Well, she's not as Jake. I didn't like Skye in the first episode. I don't know if you got to listen to that. Okay, yeah, in the first episode, I thought she was very annoying. Yeah,
sure. Okay.
So now I
didn't feel
found
that way,
her less
but sure.
annoying. Fine, but yeah, I know there are people that are already kind of after me about it, but in this one, I thought I didn't find her as annoying. I think she's actually kind of the most level-headed amongst this team. When they're in a sort of dire situation, she seems to really understand and know how to listen and be attentive and ask the right questions as far as where are we, what's going on. She's got no qualms about she's not self-conscious about being out of her depth, but she's just kind of honest and straightforward about it. And I think that she's kind of holding people's feet to the fire in a way that I appreciated, because and can I talk about her, her little text message at the end? Can I get into that now, or do you want?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have to go in any kind of order. Go for it.
Yeah. So I think, of course, I'm like, oh no, don't do that. Like, don't rat out the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team to the Rising Tide group that you're a part of. I'm less mad that she's betraying them and more mad that she thinks she's going to get away with some shit like that. Like, that's what annoys me, because in the first episode, she's like, I bet you can't break my encryption or whatever. And they're like, we did, it was easy, idiot. And that was kind of like her, like constantly being proven that like she is not as like clever and capable as she thinks she is. Then at the end, she's like literally standing behind him, like texting the enemy, and I'm like, that is really dumb. And my hope is that Coulson this whole time is like just using her to draw them out, because there's no way your device is so super secret that you're not going to get found out next episode or somewhere down the line. That's my opinion on Skye.
And Jake, so the audience will be glad to know that you liked Skye from the beginning. It sounds like you liked her in episode 1.
Yeah, I do. What I really like about her, I think that she and May are the most interesting characters we have.
Shocking! Jake likes the women.
Yep. Yeah, no positive feelings towards Ward whatsoever, I'm sorry to say. But
we're gonna talk, buddy. Yeah.
Skye and May are both interesting because I'm like, I want to know their history. What has brought them to these moments in ways that I don't have those question marks around the other characters, where as of right now, I'm like, I don't really care why Ward's here. Like, I love Fitzsimmons, but I'm not like, I am curious how like they came to have like a mono
They're really
name.
transparent though.
Like,
they wear their heart on sleeves. You know exactly who they are.
Exactly. And so with May and with Skye, I'm like, there's so much more to be mined here. So I really enjoy that as characters, where I'm like, oh, I'm excited to see this. It is funny, like speaking to what you were saying, Tony, like they could break her encryption. But it was funny. It was like they could do that, but they couldn't track down this superhero or know where the building that exploded was. Like they needed her to like show
Yeah.
them, you know. So it's like, huh? How does that
That's
work?
why I think her function here is like to maybe draw out some other people. Because there's been no real evidence that she is going to be pivotal to this team. Her function is she's going to be a double agent. I think. I mean, I think that's
Well,
maybe
she
what
thinks
Coulson's
differently.
getting
She
this.
doesn't think like an agent.
She doesn't.
In case they didn't make that clear enough.
Yeah.
I did like that. She doesn't think like us. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Lord is such an idiot. All right.
And
But
Jake, I continue.
Oh, I just think it's interesting. I noticed this in the pilot and in this episode where it's like, I like Sky's perspective because she's working with this, what do you call it? Like a hacktivism, like hacker
Mhm.
activist people. And it is interesting because it paints S.H.I.E.L.D. in an antagonistic light. And I think that's really interesting. And it makes for a compelling story where it's like, oh, I'm now questioning, is everything S.H.I.E.L.D. doing the right move? And so I think
Totally.
for that purpose, it really adds to the story a lot to have her being a double agent like that, where I'm like, am I a little on her side? You know, like kind of. Am I
Yeah.
interested to
I
know
want to
more about
keep that
Rising Tide?
thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that she made reference to Twitter and how she basically, I forget what the circumstances was, something to do with the Peruvian rebels, but she was talking about this phenomenon that happened during the Arab Spring in real life, of how Twitter became this sort of instantaneous information feed that was helping people deal with all of these crises. And I thought that was cool. They used that and brought it into the show. I like that she mentioned that, and I like that Shield has the potential to be a domineering power and doing things in secret and not protecting people. And I do want to keep that thread alive, so I'm interested in it.
Cool. And I knew Jake was going to be all in on May. Like there'd be no one that Jake would love more than Melinda May. But I do love that they're dropping these the whole thing about the cavalry. And they keep calling her the cavalry and she does not like it. Do not call me that. And one of my favorite moments in this episode is when words like, you don't have a gun, and she's like, if I need a gun, I'll take a gun. And then 2 seconds later she just is double gunning it. Like just the coolest, most badass stance that has ever happened.
She is
Amazing.
very, very cool. And I do love, because cavalry implies there are many, but apparently she is the cavalry. And I'm like, that's a great reveal. I love it.
Love it. And just watching her beat everyone up, I was like, yeah, more of this. More of this, please.
It's so hot.
Yeah, it is.
It is hot.
I love it.
Oh, Ming. And then, speaking of hot badass women, this new character Camilla shows up, and she has a history with Coulson, which I love. I love that episode 2. We already know that Coulson can get it, and
Yeah.
I love that about
that's
him.
my first note. It says Coulson can get it. Like that's literally the first thing on my notepad. So,
absolutely can. Anytime, anywhere.
yes, he can. Oh, I hope that next, like in like a couple more episodes, they're in Sweden and there's a lady who's like, Phil, and he's like, Inga, and then like several episodes later we're in like Japan and it's like, Phil, Mariko. Like I hope he's just been like tearing it up. That's what I want. That's like 2 episodes into the show and I already know what I want from this show, and that is Coulson getting it in every country where S.H.I.E.L.D. has jurisdiction.
And it's really notable because I feel like already in 2 episodes, this is 100% hornier than any of the movies, like, which feels so
yes, thank you for
chaste.
saying that.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, finally a little sex. Like, come on. Like,
you really thank you. Like, yes.
Yeah. Yes. I really liked when Camilla is so like I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about this, because Camilla is gonna try and distract Coulson with sex. Coulson is the smartest and the coolest person in the room, so that's not gonna work. But I am interested to know when she shuts the door and starts like taking off her shirt. Coulson has a great line where he goes, I know what you're doing. And I was like, does that mean then? Does he know then that she's trying to distract him? Or in that moment, does he mean, I know you're flirting really hard with me? Like, I wanted to know what your interpretation of I know what you're doing means at that point.
I think he's suspicious of her for sure. I don't know if he knows
Yeah.
that she's like fully trying to take over the plane and get it, but he's smart enough to know like he knows her behaviors a little bit from their history, and he even says you weren't always this forward. So I do think that he's suspicious, maybe not as 100%, but he's getting there. He about knows.
Yeah, okay. So he doesn't know immediately. So the subtext of I know what you're doing is I know you're flirting with me in your mind, as opposed
Yes.
to I know you're trying to take the ship. Yeah, okay, cool.
I think it's in between. I know what you're doing. I know you're flirting with me for a reason. I don't think he thinks she's just flirting with him. Like, yeah, obviously he can tell she's flirting with him. He knows. Like,
Oh yeah, of
all know
course.
that.
You want
You know?
something. I know what you're.
Yeah.
I feel like he should have entertained it just a little bit longer. You know, let's get a little bit of a kiss. Let's do something. You know, let's have a little fun before we have to go kill all the soldiers.
Yeah.
I want to call it. So I'm always going to butcher comment names, but I think Ciprilla in the comments says, as a Latin American MCU fan, I just want to highlight that Coulson's Spanish was really good. Love his Mr. Worldwide behavior. Love his, yes, that's amazing. Hashtag Latinas for Coulson. Love it. That's trending,
Latinas for Coulson. Yeah, get him in there.
Yes, I love that. And then somebody else brought up the eternal sex scene as like definitely a joke, because we all know that's the most garbage sex scene that's ever existed.
Pretty fucking awkward, that sex scene.
It's so bad. It's so dumb. Oh God,
a little bit more.
But backtracking a little bit, we have this cool firefight before they get back on the bus. I love this scene. It's really good action. And as I said last week, this show has good action. And I really enjoy all of this goes down. I love that Fitzsimmons and Skye are just frantic. They do not know what to do. Ward and May are trying to protect everybody. Then the big shield cars come in. And I can't help but think of the line in Captain Marvel when Carol is like, so you just put your logo on your car so that everybody knows your secret organization?
Yeah.
And now I think about that every time I watch the show. But like I just want to bring up how I think the action in the show is worth mentioning, especially we will get into the history of this episode later. But they filmed this episode from July 17th to July 29th in 2013. That's what network TV is so impressive. They filmed all of this in the 12 days. That's crazy. And especially that scene. Like that's a lot of stuff going on for a 12-day shoot.
Absolutely.
To me, that I wasn't super impressed with the firefight outside the cave. That did look like we gotta do this fast, guys. Like but I will say the fight in the bus was really solid. All of the action and the different little pockets of action that are going off at the same time. I really like that. But yeah, it's not bad. I didn't think it was like distractingly bad or anything, but yeah, I was more into the bus stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you have feelings about any of the action?
Tony's into bus stuff.
Hashtag bus stuff.
I love the action in the whole episode. The firefight I thought was exciting, even though I did ultimately like the bus fight more just because it was like, oh, the plane is going all over the place, and there was so much that they had to do, and the stakes just felt so much higher because it was like,
you're in the air.
Is the plane gonna crash? But I thought all the action was good. I was impressed, especially we've got a lot of between like the Disney and Marvel shows that are on now. Sometimes my complaint is like the action could be better, and I think this is doing a really great job. And for being 10 years old, I'm impressed.
10 years old for network television, it ain't bad at all.
Yeah, I love that. And it all comes down now to the team works together. I love the part where Skye's like, I don't think Ward knows which one's Fitz and which one's Simmons. Is this your first mission? And they did just come together, and I really love when they're all tied up and they decide to make a plan, and they do work together. And I think it's a great second episode because they got to learn to work together.
Yeah, you get a little hint of that in the end of the first one where, as we mentioned, Fitzsimmons have to develop a special rifle that'll neutralize J. August Richards as opposed to killing him or letting him blow up. And that was a nice victory moment when they, that shot goes off and J. August falls, and we look up and they had given Ward this new gun just in the nick of time, and he used it because he's good at that kind of thing. And so this was more of that. This was like, dire stakes. How can they pull it off? And they managed to do it despite them, despite their infighting and lack of trust. I like it.
Yeah, like any moment where you're like, how are they going to get out of this one? You know?
Welcome to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Jake. That's the show.
Good.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah, but I thought it was clever how they did it all when they're all tied up back in the back of the bus.
Yes. And Tony, you already talked a lot about Skye and her rising tide stuff, but it did end with Ward deciding he's going to be Skye's SO. So we can, maybe they're going to be spending more time together. How do you feel about that?
I think he should be fired. I think Ward needs to be off the team. I think Ward's bad at his job. But Ward is really good at combat, and also I like the scene where his instincts are popping off that these soldiers, they're not drinking their drink and they look serious, and and he's like, give me that bottle, please. And like, yeah, no, I like Ward. He's functional. He does a good job, but somewhere in your S.H.I.E.L.D. agent training, there was probably some sort of class on what to do when you get fucking shot. And there's a scene where he's sitting there having a drink with Skye, and she's like, you're shot. He's like, it's fine. It's nothing. I'm like, fuck off. You're not only are you like, you're not doing anything right now. You're on the bus, which probably has all of the medical accommodations that you would need to treat your wound. But being a dumbass. Also, you're about to jump into another fight over here with these guys. Like, what's with that?
And might I add, put on a white T-shirt, which I think is interesting because as someone who suffered from back knee, in my youth, I would have to be like wearing a white T-shirt when you have an open wound on your body is not the move. It's gonna get ruined, sir.
I'm gonna start a tally of Ward things.
Yeah. He was begging for attention. He was like, I want someone to ask me about my wound. Please.
Totally. It's nothing.
I want to say that one of our listeners, Tom, hi Tom, on Twitter asked me today, can you give a little tease, a one-word tease about how Tony felt about the episode? And I couldn't do that because when Tony and I watch this, we do not discuss it. I have no idea how he feels about the episode until this moment when we're on here, so we can keep it fresh. But I would like to tell you all that when they showed Ward got shot, Tony went, ha! He did the most guffaw I've ever heard. So all I knew about Tony's reaction to this episode was that he had things to say about Ward's shot reaction.
It's that, and he thinks that he knows better. And like as I already mentioned, he yanked the thing out of the wall. And like I think part of me is supposed to be like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta yank the nuclear tesseract device out of the wall. So that's the way you got to get things done. But I didn't feel that way. And he's just being extra rude to Skye. Like, he's already told Coulson, I'm not comfortable with this team. You can't trust her. And then they're like in the cave, and he's like, I really don't even know what your job is. Like, what do you do? And I'm like, man, what do you do? Fuck you. I don't like Ward. Ward's got a lot of work to do, I think. And that's, I'm just double check, make sure I didn't have any more Ward complaints. Make sure we can just, you should be fired. Yep, we're done. That's my Ward analysis.
Yeah, it's almost as if he doesn't understand how to be on a team.
I know, Jake. I know that's the idea. But then he's just a dick. Like she's like,
he is.
She comes up to him. She's like, I thought we got off on the wrong foot. How about I buy you a drink? And his face is just like, ugh. I guess. I mean, sure. I'll give you another shot at impressing me. I'm like, man, I really don't like you.
Yeah, I would have turned right around and been like, that's all right. We don't have to do this. Like,
I would have seen that look. I would have seen Ward's expression, and I would have said, I guess I'm having a drink by myself, or I'm going to go hang out with Ming Na Wen, and we're going to have a good time. I don't know.
Yeah, gotta give her the drink. And you know what? Okay, so the very end of the episode, the team succeeds. We go to the slingshot, location classified, and I do not mind telling you that I don't think this counts as a spoiler because I'm gonna keep the details under wraps. But there is a little web series that's a few episodes long that I want to say connects between season 3 and 4 called Slingshot. So this is our first appearance of Slingshot, and it won't be the last. They take the device to destroy it there. Cool. We get sent off, in the rocket ship. We get to see them all drinking, which, as I said before, genuinely makes me tear up every single time. Um, did you have any feelings about either of you, the emotional completion of them all being friends and hanging out?
It was a
I
nice
thought it was
moment.
so cute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was nice. I liked it. I didn't
Like,
cry,
especially
but
when, Fitzsimmons and I can't tell the names apart. I don't know which is which. I have to be honest. I think Simmons is the woman.
Gemma. Yeah.
Gemma. Great,
yes.
great, great, great.
Yes.
She comes out and she was like, we had new experiences. Everyone had new experiences. Like, so obviously shell shocked by what just happened, and I love that. It was so cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and that brings it to the post-credit scene, because this is Marvel in 2013. We're gonna have post-credit
Yeah.
scenes, and they're not after the credits because it's also TV and people would just change the channel. So we get the Shield logo, but surprise, it's not over. And if you're first-time listeners, just know that every time you see the logo, for the most part in this show, you're gonna want to stick around after the logo drops. And this was the biggest. I always forget that he shows up this early. Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury already. Episode 2, like hashtag it's all connected. They were really all about making sure everyone knew this show was a part of the MCU from the beginning. And while, as I said last week, in the year 2023, that is now in question, but we are living in the year 2013. And so, first, Tony, were you like shocked to see him?
Totally. I mean, we got Maria Hill in the first one, which is awesome. Jake also loved Kobe Smulders. I think she's awesome. But yeah, I didn't expect to see Nick Fury pop in the second episode for the purpose of comedy. Like it wasn't an essential scene. We didn't need that to push the story along. It was just Coulson getting reamed out by Fury, and Fury's had a lot of really good scenes in the MCU, especially with Secret Invasion recently, which is not a great show, but he has great content in it. This was the funniest Nick Fury scene I've ever seen. It was so funny, and I just love that was a button just for funsies.
Jake, what about you? Were you surprised by this?
Oh yeah, gasped, couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe Nick Fury is here. I think I literally out loud to myself was like, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep.
Welcome surprise. Yeah, just goofy. I love when they just have a little fun.
Yeah.
I
It was
have
just
all I
a
have to
reward
say
for
about
reward's sake.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I know that like some people when this episode came out criticized that they didn't earn that cameo, which I think is ridiculous. Like you're trying to
What
get
would you
viewers
have
to
to
network,
do?
right?
Yeah.
It's network TV. You want to get people in, and if on episode 2 Samuel Jackson showing up, people are going to tune in next week. That's just the way it goes. But I have to say my one thing about this cameo that really every time I hear the words Fitzsimmons come out of Samuel Jackson's mouth, the serotonin boost it gives me, that Nick Fury knows the name Fitzsimmons is like really like that to me is just peak thrills. I love that.
It's like
so
it's
much.
like you feel validated. You feel validated that he knows characters you
Yes.
like.
Yes, exactly. Characters who are 2 episodes old. Fitzsimmons haven't been around for 2 episodes, but clearly they're important because Nick Fury knows their names. He didn't know Sky's name. He called her the new girl. So just saying.
I think he knew Fitzsimmons' names because he looked at a report of what happened and saw that they blew a hole in a fucking plane. And I think that stuck in his mind.
Oh, so good. All right. So we have a couple more things to talk about, but first we're going to take a quick 1-minute break. So listen to the countdown music and we'll be right back. Go to the bathroom, refill your drinks. We'll see you in a minute.
We're back.
Welcome back. Hello, Jamie Jarek here with Tony Paletto and our very special guest, Jake Farrington, talking about episode 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the history of this episode. This is the part where I do some research and then drop knowledge on Tony and the guest so they can learn some fun facts about how this episode was made. And the first interesting thing, I think, is that the 084 device was created by prop master Scott Bauer, and it was supposed to be stylistic yet timeless. But the design was inspired by Art Deco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with it because it's the 40s. Yeah. It's old Hypertech.
Makes sense. I like that. And also,
what else you got?
All right. Yeah. No, that's great. The Peru setting was filmed at the Los Angeles County Arboretum and Botanic Garden, which has like gardens dedicated to specific areas of the world. And, you know, we all live in Los Angeles, and now I really want to go and see Peru.
Let's go.
I want to see, yeah, I really want to go. And we can all take photos in front of Peru and say that we're the 084s that have dropped here. You know, some of it, like they did do some location filming in actual Peru, but obviously like the cast wasn't going to Peru for episode 2 of this network television show.
They brought the drone to Peru for sure.
Yeah. And composer Bear McCreary had a larger orchestra this time for episode 2, so he did a lot more with the music. I don't know if you noticed, but there was a lot more going on with the music this week because he had more to work with than he did the first time.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna try and listen to that a little bit more so I can appreciate these artists you're telling me about. Yeah,
Bear McCreary does all the music for the entire series, and he's a big deal now. If you guys should follow him on Instagram, he does a lot of cool stuff. He currently does the music for the Rings of Power of Lord of the Rings show. He's a great composer. Yeah. So Jeff Loeb, who hardcore Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans will know as the president. He ran Marvel TV from 2010 to 2019. Marvel TV doesn't really exist anymore because things changed in a big way when we got Disney Plus. But anybody who's been to a panel during the years of this show, he often moderated them. He was often there. I couldn't believe I got asked to do the 100th episode panel because Jeff Loeb was normally the one doing it. So thanks, Jeff Loeb, for not doing it that one time. But he talked about Samuel Jackson's cameo, and basically he said that there were a number of places that we thought Nick Fury would have a big impact on the show. And they ultimately settled there to kind of christen the show and legitimize it in its own way, which, as I think we talked about, is what it worked. I don't think that they needed to wait and have him earn a cameo.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally. Like, yeah, you saying that people felt like it wasn't earned. It's just like, how do you qualify? Now the show is ready for a name like this. That's so silly.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't know if you suck or not yet. Like, don't bring your Fury into this. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Samuel Jackson ever shows up in Inhumans, but that is a show. I will admit, I've never seen that show. Tony and I have talked about eventually doing that for our Patreon, but yikes.
Just because Jamie and I are have the severe problem of being completionists, and like we once watched all of the Howling movies, which there are 8 in one day. That's the kind of mental cases we are. So yeah, we'll be doing it.
It was a long day. They also jacked up the security team for Samuel Jackson because even 10 years ago, Marvel leaks were a thing. Now, I don't think today they could have gotten away with it without it getting leaked, but it didn't at the time. Samuel Jackson was a surprise for first-time viewers. The episode was watched by 8.66 million viewers, which is a little drop from last week's 12.12, but not bad for an episode 2. Within a week of the release, the episode was watched by 13.17 million US viewers in the US. About the season average was 8.31, so this had a higher viewing than a lot of the later episodes. Also not a surprise. We all know a lot of people dropped off in season 1. I will stand firm for the rest of my life that this show is good from the start, but a lot of people claim it doesn't get good till episode 17. Boo, don't agree. And then, it got decent reviews, all this stuff. That's pretty much it. I did, on the wiki page for this episode, they name dropped some reviewers, and one of them is actually my friend, Eric Goldman, who at the time reviewed it for IGN, and he compared it to the A-Team and Indiana Jones, and he's actually on my list of people I want to guest on our show, and I need to message him and be like, do you know you're on the wiki page for specific episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Come on the show.
Official. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, so I have a couple questions for both of you, unless you have any more history questions that I can help you understand.
I love the trivia. I want it to keep flowing. I love trivia, but no, I don't have any specific questions.
Great. Love that. So, okay, Jake, you kind of
Yes.
answered this earlier, but I think it's more of a question mark. You can be honest. Do you think you'll watch more of the show?
I do. I like it so much, like, and enough
Mm.
to continue. It'll just be a matter of where I can fit in watching it. You know, like
Fair.
so I don't know that it's gonna be. I'm gonna get through it quick,
Yeah.
but
Well,
there's
think of
definitely
it.
enough. Yeah.
Take the Tony route. You only have to watch once a week for 7 years. You know.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not a
You
joke,
don't have to
pal.
binge
I'm in
it.
it.
I know. I know it's not a joke.
And I am
Yeah.
going to be asking everyone this, so don't feel bad if you don't know the answer.
Okay.
But I've got to quiz you. Do you know what SHIELD stands for?
Now they did say it somewhere, or I saw it on your Instagram, but I couldn't even
Begin to
guess
guess.
what it is at this
All right.
moment. Like special? Is that the
Nope.
first one?
Wrong.
No. Well,
Nope.
I'm out. I'm out. I failed.
It's
Maria, can you put a buzzer
strategic.
sound effects before the
Yeah.
Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement Logistics Division. You don't have to remember that. It's okay. If you come back
And I
on,
won't.
you will be asked
And
again.
I won't.
Just
And
know.
I still won't remember. So I can. That's a promise.
Yeah.
Tony, you already gave your updated thoughts on Sky and Ward, and I was just curious if there's anybody else that you're feeling differently about than you did in episode 1, aside from those two characters.
No. I still think Fitzsimmons are great. They're really entertaining. I love them. They work hard. And we're just getting Melinda May just gets more and more badass and interesting. You know, I'm excited to, and so does Coulson. Like that's after everything we've talked about, my favorite aspect of this episode was Coulson. All of his dialogue, all of Clark Gregg's performance, the way they just make him so capable and seeing the finish line so far ahead of everybody else. I like how smart he is. It's just he's the coolest, and that's the character I'm most excited about is the main character of the show.
That's
It's a
probably
good place
good.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tony, we took a poll on Instagram. People voted to see. I asked if you think you would like the first episode or second episode more. The audience overwhelmingly guessed you would like the second episode more. Were they correct?
I think so. By a narrow margin. Yes. I do think it was maybe a more cohesive episode. I think the story. We already talked about episode 1, but I do think that parts of that plot felt a little rushed and it was maybe a little more elaborate than the runtime it had. But no, this one felt pretty clean. And I dug it. Yeah, I'd say I liked it more.
Jake, did you have a preference between the two?
Yeah, I like the second one more. Yeah.
Cool. Great. I think same. They're close. It's hard for me because when you've seen them as many times as I have.
It's not that the pilot was bad. I was like, it was fun to see them interact more and like be a team instead of like people coming together. It's like people working together is more interesting.
Yeah. Tony, we're about to kick you out, so we can do a Tony leaves the room segment with Jake. So do you have any final thoughts about this episode that you didn't get to share?
No, I expressed everything that I needed to express. Ward should be fired, or he needs to change his attitude, and that's my biggest takeaway. So yeah, it's time for me to leave the room, everybody. So thank you, everyone who is watching and everyone who's listening. Thank you to Stephanie for doing our art. You can find her at Eclectic Muses on socials. Thank you, Ryan Miera, for doing our music. You can find him at Yellow Pills Music on Instagram. Thank you, producer Maria.
You're welcome. Sorry, I had to unmute there.
Yeah. This is going to be a thing. We're going to do this all the time. And thank you to our spectacular first guest, Jake Farrington. Thank you so much, buddy.
So happy to be here. It's an honor and a privilege.
It was honor. All ours.
Shout out Jake for making our guest and video templates for social media.
Oh,
Jake
that's
just
right.
offered
Yeah,
up his
Jake, you
services.
designed that.
So
Yes.
thank you.
Happy
And
to help. Happy to help.
We love you so much. And before Tony leaves the room, I do want to announce our second guest. I'm very excited to let you know that next week, another member of our Rocky Horror production from 10 years ago,
That's right.
Brett Manis, host of the podcast Comic Book Queers, and my longest running Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. friendship. Brett and I have been talking about S.H.I.E.L.D. together since day one, since the day it aired. So I'm really, really excited that he's coming here next week. So for those of you who are about to drop off, I got to remind you to follow us on social media. We're at LitoPod on Instagram and Twitter. From there, you can check out our link tree, which will take you anywhere you want to go, our YouTube, our Twitch. Like and subscribe to our channel. Leave us those 5-star reviews. And if you leave a question with your 5-star review, we'll try to answer it on the podcast. And Jake, we don't want to leave out our Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. newcomers who are leaving with Tony. So we want to make sure they can know where to find you on social media as well before they leave.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Jakey Jake F. It's JAKEY JAKEF. And then you can find my podcast, Give Me That D, at GMTD Pod on Instagram. And
Beautiful.
give us a follow. Check us out.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
They're a great podcast. I've had so much fun the times I've been on. All right, Tony. It was great having you. I'll see you in
Enjoy
our
your
living
secret
room in
meeting.
about 10 minutes.
You sure will.
All right,
See you there.
If you have not watched beyond episode 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it is time for you to turn off the podcast, mark the time so that you can come back and listen once you're all caught up. Jake, oh my gosh, hello.
Yes, hello. I
he's
can't
gone.
wait to get into it.
Okay. So first, I knew we were going a little long. We'll get better at time management as the podcast goes on. But I do want to know. So you know a little bit. What do you know about the future? What do you remember?
Okay. Now, Chloe Bennett, is her character not at some point named Quake? Is that wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
She discovers her powers in season 2, and then we find out her identity is Daisy Johnson. I talk loud, so I'm realizing I don't want Tony to hear me in the other room. Daisy Johnson is a comic book character, so it's a big reveal especially for Marvel Comics fans when they reveal her identity in season 2. Huge deal, and that's been the hardest thing for me so far. Is not calling her Daisy. That's been so hard for me to remember to call her Sky. But so far, so good. We have not failed.
Love it. I was like, I remember her having powers or something. And that was something I was surprised. I was like, oh, I thought there were more people with powers. And I was surprised that Jay August wasn't in the second one because I was like, well, he was at the 100th episode panel. So I feel like he comes back.
Yeah, you will see him again, but not as much. That panel was cool because they brought in a lot of people who weren't around anymore and who were coming back. I think Tony will eventually be glad to know that Ward's not around the whole time. Ward is the only member of the original 6 who does not make it to the finale. So
okay.
Yeah, so that's good.
Oh, well.
It is funny to watch Tony bash Ward because the fandom really does hate Ward. We love Brett Dalton. One day on this podcast, I'm going to share the video that he took for my mom because my mom loves him, and he made a little recording at the panel for my mom. It was really cute.
I love it.
And
I love it.
Yeah. And I also wanted to bring up when we did the panel, I think the person that you and I just kind of hung out with the most was Deachin Lockman, who plays Sky's mother in season 2. She was lovely. And now she's on what's the really good Apple show with Adam Scott? Severance. She's on Severance now. So she's thriving.
Yes. Oh, and she was so nice. She was like giving me tips of where to go shopping because I liked all her clothes.
Yes, she's lovely. And
she's like, you gotta go to Santee Alley.
Yeah, great. She also gave me your email, which I never used because hey girl, what's up? But now I'm like, well, when we get to season 2, maybe I'll shoot her an email and ask her to come be on the podcast because I have
absolutely. Absolutely.
So just she was so lovely, but everyone was, and I will. Talking about the 100th panel is going to come up like every week, I'm sure. I haven't given all the full details because I don't want to. I'm going to bring it up so often, like that's going to be a drinking game. Jamie brings up the 100th panel, take a drink.
Yeah.
So there's so many details of that day to still talk about, but I want to spread it out and keep it a little. I'm not going to save it all for 100 episodes from now because I just don't have that kind of patience in me. Yeah. So I do have to say I think Tony forgot that he said this, but at the beginning of the episode when the guy gets sucked out of the plane, Tony goes, "Oh, well, Coulson can't die again." And it took everything in my power not to react because Coulson dies 7 times on this show. Literally, once is a fake out, but he dies 7 times. And if you count the episode as I've always been in the 7th season, he dies like 100 more times. Like Coulson dies so much on this show. It's insane.
Wow.
So when Tony
What are
said
they
that, I was like,
doing in Tahiti?
Also, if I'm not mistaken, the writing on the wall episode literally is when they fully explain what happened to Stim. I could be wrong, but I do think that that's cool. And yeah, Salty Shield stand in the comments saying dying is Coulson's superpower. It really, truly is. It's
That is
a fact.
so funny.
Yes. One thing that also came up in this episode was Fitz made a monkey reference. He was talking about the monkeys that are around Peru, and Fitz talking about monkeys will come up a lot. And in the 6th episode, Gemma hallucinates and sees 6th season, sees him in a monkey costume, and I have that tattoo. I have Fitz in a monkey costume.
That's what that is.
Tattooed on my
Okay.
body. Yes.
Amazing.
So I'm gonna be on like Fitz monkey watch, and every time Fitz talks about a monkey, I will have to bring it up. But it's Tony will eventually follow that he keeps talking about monkeys. He just loves
Right.
monkey.
That is such a fun character trait.
Yes, I love it. And something that bums me out about this episode is that Ward has does have genuine moments, even though he's an asshole and he does not a team player. It does sometimes hurt when, I don't know if you know this, but Ward is Hydra. Ward is going to, yes, I didn't think you knew. Don't worry, everybody. I checked with Jake beforehand that we can do spoilers.
Yes.
So when the Winter Soldier comes out, it coincides with the 17th episode of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they realize that they've been infiltrated by Hydra this whole time. In fact, when the cast first watched that movie, they were like, what's going to happen to our show? And great things happen. But so Ward's Hydra. So
that
hate him.
I love it. Well, what's nice about him as a character, even though I do not like the character, but it's like all of the other characters are also annoyed by him. So it's we're supposed to feel that way. I think, I don't know, as anybody being like, I love Ward. I don't know. It seems crazy.
My mom. My friend Marshall was telling me that he quit the show when Ward was outed as Hydra because he was so mad about it because he loved Ward so much. So there are some Ward stands out there.
Okay.
Again, he comes back in season 4 and it's one of my favorite returns. It's so good. It was the perfect way to bring him back. We won't get too into it right now because we have plenty of time to talk about future stuff in the Tony Leaves the Room segments. But yeah, it's so, I'm glad that happens this season though, because it'd be too hard to keep that from Tony for years.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's so fun. I gotta keep watching.
Yes, once a week. That's nothing. It's nothing to watch once a week.
It's easy. Yeah.
All right. So before we say our final goodbyes, Jake, is there anything about the show or any final thoughts that you want to share?
I love the show so much. I do just want to. There were some people in the comments earlier talking about the inflatable raft that plugged the hole in the bus, and I did just want to validate their feelings and say I did laugh out loud when that happened.
Tony also made a comment. He was like, "That would just get sucked right through," and I'm surprised he bring that up because that doesn't bother me, but it's a little questionable.
I'm giving into the reality of the show, but it did make me laugh. I was like, this is very funny to me. So I just wanted to let everyone in the comments know I felt similarly to what they were saying.
Yeah, validation.
I loved the show. I'm so happy to have watched.
Me too. I'm so glad that I got, because I've been wanting you to watch the show for a long time. You want your best friend to watch your third favorite show. So and I want to leave it on this with Tess in the comments is saying Brett Dalton has such amazing range on the show, and you'd never know that early on. Like Brett Dalton, it's true. We love Brett Dalton. We stan Brett Dalton. We're allowed to hate Ward. It's fun to hate Ward. I love hating on characters. It is so great. And also Tess in the comments says, I hope Jake comes back in. Me too. Oh. And the only way for that to happen is for Jake to keep watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay, so I'll do it.
Yay! All right. Thank you so much for everybody who tuned in live. Thank you everybody who is listening afterwards when it goes up on Spotify, Apple, everything. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, or if you're listening, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. We love this fandom. Tune in next Sunday, October 8th at 5 p.m. Pacific for episode 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. the asset. We'll be live same time, same place. And if you can't make the stream, the episode will be up shortly on all major podcast platforms. See you in a week. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.